We need it. There we go.
Okay, so let's summarize some of the cool things we've talked about tonight.
For me,
Yeah.
Go ahead, Joe.
no, for me, it's more about thinking about rethinking systems in the sense of outside of the terms of capital.
Yeah.
That's the main takeaway for me, and I'm still thinking about that.
Yeah.
And then how solutions, things that we think are solutions, are not necessarily solutions to the problems that we've encountered during COVID.
We determined that things that are happening are either happenings or events, and then whether or not they're solutions or problem is a matter of interpretation from the particular brain that's looking at it.
That's a very good way of saying it. Yes.
Yeah.
Those are
And then
two.
we talk about the fundamental way of always seeing things indoors.
That's right. That's the best thing.
Is dual.
Everything's dual. And then Mahler brought up the idea that energy is the universe. And considering if the universe were a toolbox, that capital is one of those tools. It's one of the way energy focuses, but there are other tools in that toolbox.
There's so many.
Energy.
It's infinite. That's why we say finite, but infinite variations.
So you're saying that
there are infinite number. So there's infinite numbers, infinite number.
Finite capital, infinite uses of those capital. That capital.
Yeah.
Okay.
The universe and energy are infinite. Capital is finite, and there are infinite uses of capital.
I thought the universe was finite in Bucky's world.
Yeah, it is.
I said it was infinite.
Okay.
It is, but depends on how you see it. If you see at the sum total of our experience, it's finite, although evolving all the time. And it can expand and contract. Yes, it can expand and contract depending on how, like we are with lack always experiencing things happening, right?
Right.
And then we book them. We put them in store of the knowledge. So there are time of progressions, but there are also some right time of regression of those things. So, so that's what does the pulses, expansion and contraction of universe.
And those are cycles.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
And so if universe is finite and universe is fractal, and fractals are infinite.
Yes.
Say that again.
So
fractals are infinite, but the universe is finite.
If you take anything, look, if you take a volume of water, right, with different colors, and you continuously shake it, is it finite or infinite?
If you shake it, it's infinite.
Yes, the pattern, it depends. So it depends on perception. There's a perception of infinity in the ways, in the pattern that we can see. You can't determine that there is a finite number of patterns.
Right.
Because they change all the time. And those change are at minimum to the 2 to the power of n vibrations. And it's going Greek. I mean, question was asked, and it's very, very clear here. So if you have, imagine the Yankee Stadium in New York, right?
Right.
And there is a crack.
Right.
That releases a drop of water.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And that drop of water doubles a drop of water a minute. And that doubles every minute. How long will it take for the Yankee Stadium to be submerged?
18 minutes.
Steve?
I don't know. I like Joe's guess.
It is exactly 44 minutes.
44 minutes, Joe. How short-sighted of you.
I went under.
No,
I bet the under.
It is exactly 44 minutes. Exactly 44 minutes. And the most interesting thing is that
I want to see that.
At the 43rd minute, it's still half.
Yeah.
So you're still safe. You still feel safe.
Well, even if it gets
That's
full
a-
at 44 minutes, then at 43 minutes, it's only half full.
I gotta
And
see.
at 42 minutes, it's 1/4 full.
You want to see that?
I gotta see the. I've got. Yeah. I almost. It's.
I
It's
did a
just,
calculation yesterday.
I can put it on
It's
spreadsheet.
44 minutes exactly.
How did you do the what was the basis of your calculation?
Okay, let's just put it. Let's just put it.
the
Let's put
compound interest calculation.
it.
It's
No,
a
you-
complicated calculation. There's no question about it.
Okay, let's look at the calculation. You see, if you take a series,
Yeah.
you know, the amount of water, let's just take the volume of water, whatever it is. The number of drops that come into it is a series, right? It's a sum of the drop. It's a sum of two times the first unit, right? Because it doubles all the time.
Right.
So it's 1 plus 2 plus 4 plus 8 plus 16
Right.
plus
Right.
32, right?
Right.
Is a sum. And the solution to that it is 2 to the power of n, n being the number of drops, the number of minutes or the time,
Okay. I get
minus
that.
1, minus 1.
Why -1?
Because that's the formula.
Okay.
2, let me write it, is the sum of all drops
Yeah.
is equal to 2 to the power of n minus 1.
See, I don't know that kind of math,
Okay.
but I
To
can
the
tell you
power, you know, let me write it properly here. Is 2 to the power of n minus 1. The minus 1 is well defined. So, for example, if you take the series to 2 to 3 drops, the first drop is 1, the second is 2, the third is 4, right? 1 plus 2 plus 4 is 7.
Yeah, I've done it
2 to the power of 3.
I've done it arithmetically on my spreadsheet, Manu. I don't understand the powers number.
Okay.
I'm
just
not
write
even
it.
calculus. But here we
Okay,
go. 44 minutes.
Yes.
The stadium is full.
Yes.
At 43 minutes, it's half full. At 42 minutes, it's 1/4 full. At 41 minutes, it's 1/8 full. At
Okay, you have it there. Oh, super.
all right, 1/16 full, and then it goes 1/32 full, then it goes 1/64 full, then it goes 124th full, all the way down to 0 minutes, where one drop is 0.00000000000057 equals one drop of a stadium.
Okay, but look at it here in terms of our attitude. Where is interesting and dangerous? Look, go up where you were at 43 minutes.
Hang on, I'm going to go back up to where you want me to go. I just want to get that part down. Okay, where do you want me to go? How many minutes?
This is still blowing my mind. I mean, and I know that this is our minds think.
Can you imagine that at 43 in a universe, in a world that is designed to last 44 minutes, people are still complacent?
It's crazy.
Right?
Yeah. This is another way to look at critical mass.
Right.
Yeah. But it's dangerous. This is in terms of apprehending danger and challenges and not planning for. So there is a damage in you. We are all, you, Steve, or me, I'm born and I'm that kid. and something damageable happened to me, and it let fester, right? And then I leave. After a while, I'm damaged. I'm unrecoverable. And that 44 minutes is what Bucky has identified as 13 years. Or 43 minutes is 13 years in a human life. You remember when we read those things?
Yeah, I do.
He said it is critical for our kids to be rightly, let me put rightly between quotes, formed or educated by the age of 13. We read that not long ago.
Yeah, I do remember
Right?
that. Yeah.
So the 13,
somewhat sad, but
yes, 13 is 43 minutes here. Right? At 43 minutes, we still have time to rush out of a stadium before it's submerged. But most of us are in between 43rd and 44th minutes, where it's too late. And that's where the real compound of the woes of ours these days are.
Yeah, this is interesting. This is how things spin out of control so fast. This is what this is really where things get, even wars or whatever it may be. Things just, they're compounding and we're not recognizing, and then all of a sudden it's too late.
So going back to what Steve was saying, if we have restricted, we are creatures of habits, aren't we?
Yeah.
Okay. So if the definition of or the perception of capitals or solution, I mean, there are places I know where everybody believes that everything has to be done by the government.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that think that.
Yes. They don't believe that you have any destiny, you can shape your destiny. They don't believe so.
No, I agree.
Whereas science is proving that, what you call your fixed part of your explanation of your thing, that is genetics, is at most 50%. But the catch is that during the right period, the fundamentals have to put in place. You build a house, making the foundation right. Your foundation is weak. In the Bible, it says, if you build a castle on sand, it will crumble.
Yeah, sure.
You really need to have those stones and the right cement and anchor it on a rock in order to elevate. If you don't do it properly, you're going to have a problem your whole life.
Yeah, it'll wash away.
Yes. So that's the fundamental. Where do we put our resources? How do we use our resources? And who do we target? And to do this, you must almost come out of your empathic thing and to see things objectively.
Good luck. I mean, that's hard.
Yeah, to choose where you choose. I'm not saying, eugenics, but where you choose, it's really a dangerous terrain. Where do you apply your resources?
Right.
In order to ensure that what we're aiming for, which is what? More than sustainable, regenerative, reaching a regenerative state. Where do you concentrate your resources?
Where are resources?
Your shaped capital.
Yeah.
Your shaped energy.
Well, And I mean, this comes back to something that I was talking about last night, is this idea of difference between efficiency and effectiveness. All right, how do you get effectiveness is regenerative, in my opinion, because it's giving you the outcome of something that you want. But efficiency is just something about time and capital. It's the path of least resistance in a distorted system. Does that make sense?
I would say, let me put it a little bit different. I would say knowledge and application is regenerative. Knowledge and practice.
That's wisdom. That's applied knowledge.
It's regenerative.
Right.
When you say apply, when you say apply knowledge, it might sound restrictive. I want to put it in the principle of two things coming together like this to build a tetrahedron is knowledge, right? Which in itself is knowledge is at minimum 4-dimensional.
Yes. Okay.
Is at minimum 4-dimensional. Is a tetrahedron.
Okay, now you can actually, I've been visioning over the last couple weeks as I've been thinking about thinkable set, that actually knowledge is 4-dimensional and the circle of irrelevancies actually demonstrates that.
Yes, but I will going to come into this. Knowledge is 4-dimensional.
Well,
your
yeah.
practice.
Wait a minute. I don't know if I agree. Wait a minute. Let me click. Can I ask a question?
Yeah, ask me a question.
All right, knowledge is 4-dimensional. Then, and I guess it depends on what your words you use. But what about understanding?
No, listen to me. Knowledge, you know what? What do you know?
Right.
You know what do you know, Steve?
I know.
Because knowledge is the set of nodes. What do you know?
Knowledge is a set of knowns. Is that 3D or 4D?
No, let me just put it. It's a topology, is a set of nodes.
Knowledge is a set of knowns.
Of nodes.
Knowns.
A know.
Yeah, it's information applied.
Let me put it. Knowledge is the set.
Is a set of knowns, because there are knowns and known knowns.
No, of nodes. I put it this way.
Yeah, but nobody knows what knows means, Manu.
Yeah, I'm thinking knowns.
But that's where I wanted to bring my argument with Joe.
All right.
What do you know? What do you know?
What do I know?
In other words, knowledge is a set of what is known.
Yes, but let me continue, because if we truncate here, we're not going to. What do you know, Steve? What do you know, Joe? You know something.
Yeah, I know how I got on this call tonight.
Okay, so it is something. You know something, right?
Right. And how's that 4D?
That something is a thing.
Right.
Something. And every form, everything is at minimum a tetrahedron.
That's thinkable sets that you're talking about, right?
Yes, everything.
But you're using everything as a tetrahedron as a cop-out, because I want to know how you get to 4D without using tetrahedron as a model.
No, that's why I'm coming. Everything is a 4, is a tetrahedron, is at minimum a tetrahedron.
See, I totally agree with you, and I totally agree with you that reality is 4D, but I want to know.
Okay, so let's just come into this.
Right.
So if everything is at minimum a tetrahedron, the original thing is at minimum a tetrahedron.
Right. And we know that a tetrahedron is a manifestation of 4-dimensional reality, because Bucky says that is coming out of 90 degrees, and by taking that thing and converting it to 60 degrees, we now have a metaphor of four-dimensional reality manifested in 3D.
Okay, so let's just come in. I was part of the original, the Big Bang. Was I or not?
Oh, you're a result of it.
I was.
One of the at some point, cause and effect. I'm giving you a lot of credit.
There's nothing in me that was not from the Big Bang.
That's true enough.
That's right. That's absolutely.
There's nothing.
That's a four-dimensional point of view, though.
Exact. So everything at minimum that I can imagine is four-dimensional.
Yeah. So let me explain this to whoever might be listening to this. Maybe it's just me, but this is the principle of morphogenesis. In other words, I plant a seed for a tree. What makes that tree grow up to be that tree? Why doesn't it grow up to be the tree next door? Or why doesn't it grow up to be the parent tree or the grandparent tree? Well, because
it was
the pattern for that tree was set in that seed. And the only way I can see the fullness of that pattern is through duration, through time.
Yes.
So therefore, reality is four-dimensional.
Yes.
And because
at minimum
four. And because I'm trapped in 3D, I only see the tree the way it is in this moment. I only see Manu the way Manu is in this moment. Unfortunately, I only see myself the way I am in this moment if I look at me in 3D. Now, if I look at me in 4D, I see a different picture of myself. And again, I'm going to say, the circle of irrelevancies points to a four-dimensional reality, and I'm going to show that to you when Manu's finished, because I want Manu to prove what he's saying, because I agree with him, but I want to hear words of proof.
Yeah, me too.
Now, well, if I'm in what was and what is, that is at minimum 4, the only way I can be in and be a unit is that I'm also 4 minimum. So I'm like that sphere into this tetrahedron, and immediately to me is 4 dimension. It's natural, it's in it, because I can see through 4 windows that are independent.
Okay,
I can see the whole thing through 4 windows that are independent.
Do you guys know what an Oort cloud is?
Yeah,
I've never thought of this before, but I'm going to use an Oort cloud to show what Manu is saying. Do you guys know what an Oort cloud is?
Show it.
Okay.
Yeah.
You showed it once.
Yeah, I'll show it again. This Oort cloud is the
no, I know what you're talking about. Actually.
It was a guy named Van Oort, who he was a Dutcher, I think, astronomer, who said that the universe, the solar system, and the universe is in the shape of a torus.
Yes.
And I'm going to show you this Oort cloud here. There's two ores, and I have a picture of one. Right? Whoops, wrong section. I could go out to Google and get it, but I would like to see. I have some really good Oort clouds right here. They're coming up in just a second. Thank you for being patient. Okay, good. Here are 2 pictures of Oort clouds. Where did my Zoom controls go?
You're not sharing.
I know. I have trouble finding my Zoom controls. Okay, here we go. This is an Oort cloud. Yes. And so here's the entire solar system. And then here's the plane on which the solar system apparently when we look at it with the telescope, we see the planets along this horizontal line. And so metaphorically speaking, this is the past, this is the present, this is the future. And they all exist in this reality, and they reveal itself as consciousness manifests. And unfortunately, most human beings are bound by the consciousness of right now.
You know, doesn't McTaggart's arrow of time come into play with this? Does anybody know what that is?
I know the arrow of time as discussed by Stephen Hawking, and I think he's referring to the arrow of time. It only points in one direction.
No.
And it actually, but he says in quantum reality, there's no reason for that arrow to point from now to the future, or from now to the past. Computers think and store past, they don't store future, but there's no reason why that can't be either way. Just like human beings should be able to store the future and then wonder what the past is. And if one studies alchemy, this I know sounds crazy, Merlin the magician lives backwards in time. So to Merlin, time is going backwards, and to humans, time is going forwards. And in reality, time is going in both directions simultaneously, based on probability. And when I look back at the past, I can change my paradigm about the past. I can change my reality of the past by just looking back at the past and making a new choice. I can look back at the past and I can say, oh, that thing that happened to me was terrible. It ruined my life. And I can look at it with another lens and look back at the past and say, oh, that thing that I thought was so terrible is the reason why I'm as cool as I am today. I'm grateful for that tragedy. Mm-hmm. And immediately I change my paradigm by changing my view of the past. Boy, that's hard to understand.
Okay.
I just said it. Realize how fragile that statement was. Go ahead, Manu. What?
So I wanted to get back to the practicality that we were discussing. Where Joe? Yes.
Okay. Here's the org, and you're done with it, right? I'll close it down, right?
Okay. So we see that knowledge is 4-dimensional.
Right.
Now.
No, wait. Is knowledge 4-dimensional?
At minimum.
At minimum 4-dimensional.
Okay, at a minimum.
That makes sense to me. Okay.
Okay. Now, let's look at practice. What do we do locally? We aim it to be spherical in that exploring all around, right?
Right.
Different angles of hearing, seeing, and booking that. That is practice that you aim it to be also 4-dimensional because we're seeing all around. Now the two has to marry because this is always happening and this is coming like that.
Okay.
In order to make it effective. So effectiveness is at minimum 1440-degree matter.
Okay. That I get.
Yeah. Wisdom aim to be true all the time in the past and as further in the future as we can imagine.
Okay.
And wisdom is ready to reconsider, to sacrifice for a new wisdom. That's like life.
No, I get it. So how many
and that's what ensure what we call the regenerative of it. Regenerative also means that you can sacrifice without interrupting the process.
I like that.
Summarize it then.
So regenerative is sacrifice without interrupting the process. You can sacrifice without interrupting the process.
Why sacrifice? I don't get the significance of the sacrifice.
Well, I mean, locally, you, Steve, can go, but you are prepared to feel in such a way that Manu steps in your shoes. So your spirit still lives.
And by doing that, what have I accomplished?
Regenerative or whatever you created. For example, we talk about regenerative business or something of the sort. So the implication is that if you are in business, doing something, you have to prepare, succession. It has to be part of your thing. That is thinking ahead. That is thinking macro first before you do the micro. So when you retire, Steve, you are sacrificing yourself from the life of business.
Well, it's thinking circularly. circular or in a circular motion, right?
Yeah.
Spherical. Is that right?
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'm getting it all.
Okay.
I'm kind of getting it. And I don't really keep coming back to like something like where something like the Hertz factory, like where it's nothing's wasted. Nothing is interrupted. It's the building heats itself. That's what I'm kind of where you're still disrupting the environment, but you're really not you're disrupting the environment, but you're not sacrificing anything. Maybe that's a better way of saying it. Does that make sense?
No, I almost clarify just a little bit. I'm disrupting the environment, but I'm not doing what?
Sacrificing anything.
Nothing's dying because of what I'm doing.
Right.
The whole doesn't die because part has been sacrificed. And the ability to do that is actually to be able to shape things in waiting, to step in part of, to substitute that part.
And in actuality, it's good for some things to die.
Yes. You must die. It's good for you must die.
A part of me must die every day if I'm going to progress.
True.
If I don't let go of my past judgments, I might as well be dead because I'm not expanding.
Steve, all your atoms change in 2 weeks.
Yes.
All your atoms, what we call Steve here. So what I'm calling you, Manu that is talking to you now, is actually just an equivalent couple of the Manu Steve that existed at a Bucky car just a month ago.
I'm definitely different than I was a month ago. I guarantee you that.
No, you wonder. No, what is guaranteed? You're 100% different to what you were physically.
Oh yeah, no question. And
yes,
mentally, yeah.
Yes. Mentally is change. Mentally is metaphysical, changing all the time.
Again, if we're talking 3D or 4D.
No, it's always changing. Whether you want it or not, then your consciousness of it might be static for a while, but the reality is that it's changing all the time. It's change.
But that's a 4D representation of reality.
Whatever the case, that's what we live.
Change is a 3D experience of a 4D reality.
Yeah. Look, you know this experience that change is the only constant?
Yes.
Yeah. We know that universe is regenerative, right? Bucky put it as a generalized principle. He called it eternally regenerative universe.
That's a good point, actually. I don't think regenerative is anywhere in that document.
No, it is. It uses it
anywhere.
Bucky uses it all the time. Eternally regenerative. Any of his texts.
Wayne, I'm talking about.
In Wayne's document, yeah.
That's something that's legitimate that you can bring up. He brings up regeneration once. Yeah. That's a principle too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so actually that's
it is universe is eternally regenerative, is the equivalent of saying energy is always flowing.
That is something that needs to come out.
It's flowing from a place to a place.
Yeah, there's nothing actually.
Yeah.
Okay.
Boy, are we
Change.
having fun.
This is fun, actually. It's free flowing.
Yeah.
I was actually trying to reimagine some of Bucky's concepts last night. Not last night, earlier this evening. Not reimagine is the wrong word. Just reflect on is probably the
Well,
better
and
term.
I think you're absolutely right. This is where lag is so important to allow me to recontextualize my concepts based on my current set of experiences. Because I made judgments about my Bucky ideas a year ago, and I've expanded my context, and now I want to reintegrate those concepts in terms of my present experience. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's cool that you wanted to do that, and here we're doing it. Wow, you really manifest the universe, my friend.
I don't know about that. I'm trying to understand the universe.
Well, I think that's a mistake. I think you're much better off I'm much better off just to experience the universe. And it's fun to do what I can to understand it, but it's not critical that I understand it. It's more critical that I just have my experience.
You know, when I was young, I used to write poetry, and I use the word, "You can't catch the rainbow."
I can't catch a rainbow.
Yeah. Can you catch it?
Yeah. How do you, and then what? And so what did that mean for you?
Well, it was just the experience of it that will go and come back whenever you wanted to come.
Right on.
I'm thinking also how to. I was thinking about procession a little bit
About
earlier.
perception.
That's something that should be covered actually in the paper as well
Yeah.
in some way.
Well, in a way, indirectly, he's covering perception because he's inviting people to,
Procession,
precession.
precession. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I agree. To me, the conversation of precession is more holistic.
You're
Have you
talking
guys?
about the way Becky puts it.
Yes, the way Bucky puts it.
Yeah, but it tried to explain because perception is so elusive.
Yeah.
It just, you know, for us to put in the way you understand, it has to take example. For example, it takes leverage, it takes momentum, you know, how do you call linear momentum and circular momentum to explain precision, the two of together. Taking the example of the destroyer, or the you know, a rock drop in a lake on the surface of a lake, and then you have
The way
ripples
the ripple
propagating.
effects.
Yeah. Or the motion of the moon gravitating around the earth without ever falling into the earth, crashing into earth. That's why if you want to try to explain, you know, how do you explain radiation or gravity? Other by example than by examples.
Yeah.
Or stylizing the behavior of it. You can't, you know, these are things that exist, they're there. And you can only apprehend them with characteristics that you try to put in a form or in a pattern that you understand, in a relationship that you understand.
And the way I understand precession is, the simplest in terms, everything is moving every way possible all of the time. or any way possible, any of the time.
Yeah.
And then
well, go and try to teach that to a guy, you see?
Yeah, but without understanding in and out, without understanding around and between, there's no way to
Yeah, that's
understand.
true. There is.
There's no way to understand that everything is moving everywhere all at once. And the only way one can do it is to come down to these simple examples of in and out and around and between, and expansion and contraction. You know, once I consider all those and I put all those together, then I say, and it's moving in more ways than that.
Yeah.
Which I can't
so,
even.
So you are saying all the other the other 5 degrees of freedom that Bucky say is precession, right? You can understand it like that.
That's right. The last one is
you can understand that spinning, orbiting, expansion, contraction, twisting, inside out is all precession in manifestation. You could. It wouldn't be out of. You understand what I'm trying to say, Joe?
Yes, to some degree.
You could say, because Bucky says there are 6, the way he put it. He said there's spinning,
right.
He said there's orbiting.
That's
he
right.
Said there's contraction,
velocity.
Expansion. He said there's inside out. And he said there is twisting, torsion. Right? And then he said the 6th one is precession. And it takes example to explain it.
I thought it was Soviet.
Yeah, Soviet P.
P, yeah.
Soviet
That's how I
P.
remembered it.
Yeah.
But what's V then?
V are vectors.
Vectors, okay.
And vectors are only in parentheses. So SO V in parentheses, IET P. And the V is in parentheses, meaning that all of that expansion, contraction, in and out, spinning, counter spinning they are all vectors.
Yes. You always have a direction.
And it has direction and momentum and mass.
Yes.
Or let me see, direction, momentum, and is there another element?
Acceleration.
Well, momentum. Oh, okay. It may be different than acceleration. Yeah.
Momentum is the product of velocity and mass. When you conjugate those two, that's what gives you momentum. That's the definition of momentum.
Let me say that again.
Momentum is a scalar. Is a scalar. And momentum is the conjugate, the product of velocity and mass.
That's actually correct. You know, I had a
that
friend.
Is the definition. That's the mathematical the definition of momentum. Is how much is not energy per se, but how much power is being pushed through a system with, as mass increases, meeting motion of that system.
You know, it's funny that, so I know some people that actually used velocity and mass as an equation to determine validity.
Validity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like if there is a conversation on the internet, it would take the velocity and it would take the number of individuals talking about something, and it would come up with whether something was valid or not.
Look at this. Validity is close to what you call materiality. What you call validity is a judgment utility of it's called materiality too.
What's it called?
Materiality.
Materiality. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
It's
because
materiality. Yeah,
when you
whether
say
it's
that
material or
material
not.
to me is value
Right.
to me, and that's why it
And
defines
if you
the
think about that,
way.
even in something like an audit,
Yeah.
whether something is a material weakness versus
Yes.
and it's done by the mass of something, or what you not mass, but the mass and the velocity.
Yes.
How frequent is this event, and how much of an impact does it have to your financial statement? And that means it's material.
Yeah.
If
What is the other definition of it? Using two words.
What's the other definition of it? Of what?
Carrying weight. Carrying weight.
Yes. All right. I see that. Yeah.
Materiality is carrying weight. So carrying is what? Carrying is what? Velocity.
Velocity.
Carry.
Yeah.
Yes. Weight is mass.
It's mass.
In
Yeah,
the word.
this is interesting, actually. This is really interesting because you start to see how this is playing out in every aspect of our lives.
Yeah.
And all these algorithms.
Yes. And all of that is also called in physics momentum.
Momentum, yeah.
In physics, it's called momentum.
I gotta find that presentation, actually. All right.
So you see why it's important to go general first before.
Yeah. No, I agree with it. You don't.
You go applications, macro, because it allows you to find equivalences. Generalization is also the set of equivalences.
This is abstract thinking.
Yeah, generalization is a set of equivalences, and equivalences is always at minimum a duality. When you define an equivalence, it's an equivalence between two things at minimum. So generality is the generality of dualities, generalization of dualities. Do you get that, Joe?
I do. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I'm also sending you guys stuff as we.
You see, for example, the principle of relativity, right?
Yeah.
The one of 1905. It was the equivalence. The way Einstein wrote it is the equivalence of energy and mass.
Right.
That's the way it's expressed it in a relation that was generalizing Newtonian. Newtonian always had one influence, a force influencing the mass. And to get to energy, you needed to multiply the force by the velocity to get energy. Remember that?
Yeah. Yes, I do.
Energy is force multiplied by velocity. So you needed to imply acceleration, which was force is mass multiplied by acceleration. Mass in action is force. Right? The definition of force is mass multiplied by acceleration. In physics, when you define dF, d force, equal max time dv, that is the differential of velocity divided by time, which is acceleration. This is the equation. Force equal, okay, d force, please, force is a vector here, equal m, that is mass, multiplied by d velocity.
Are you putting this in the chat?
Yes, divide by time.
Thank you.
Or dt, divide by dt. df, differential of force, equal mass times differential of velocity, divide by differential of time. That's the formula of force, right? And
Right.
acceleration equal differential of velocity divide by differential of time. That's acceleration. That's why you have acceleration in feet per square second. Like gravity, you say gravity is a number, and that number is feet, the unit of it is feet per square second. You remember that?
I do.
Yes, when you say gravity, the gravity of the Earth is 9.81 meter per square second.
This is actually bringing a whole bunch of stuff to mind.
Okay, so acceleration is that. So force, then force equal mass times acceleration. That's where I wanted to go. So mass is a scalar, so it hasn't got any dimension, but acceleration is a vector, and force therefore is a vector.
Force, mass. What is it? Wait a minute. What was the vector you were saying?
Now I say force is a vector.
Okay.
Mass is a scalar. When you say Joe, you are.
It's a scala.
200 pounds. You are 200 pounds.
Okay.
It's just a number.
Yeah.
It's counting some things. It doesn't have a number. It's a lump. It doesn't have a direction. Whereas velocity is taking that mass into a direction. Remember that velocity is distance into one direction divided by time.
Right.
Velocity is distance, is length divided by time. So length, as you measure a length in a certain direction. So length is a vector.
Length is a vector.
Yeah.
All right. And then.
Well, you always say the distance between Cape Town and New York is. The flight from Cape Town to New York is. That is the direction. You measure from the origin to a point. So you're extending your meter towards the point. That is the direction. Now you divide that by a notion of time, which is just the counting. We all agree that time is not a dimension. Time is just a frequency, it's an interval.
You know, all of these concepts are starting to make more sense to me now.
Yeah, time is not a dimension.
Not only,
time,
I mean, but
measure,
all of our meetups are starting to make more sense.
So if you don't understand these things, you're always going to be confused, because all is now, it starts simple and then it divide to multiply. So you have the multiplication, the relationship of simple things to make the complex.
But this is also
at the base, that's why you need to understand the complex. And complex in terms of understanding is the micro. You need to understand the fundamental topologically. To understand diversity, you need to understand what it is as a whole. I see that you are wrestling with you, Joe, trying to grasp the thing and nature.
yes.
Topology is what it is. It's the simplest. There's a topology, there is a landscape. That's what it is. But I see mountains. That's what they are. But I see Mount Joe. Mount Joe. Now I go to the foot on Mount Joe, and I start measuring up to the top of Mount Joe. That's the graphic now. It's detail. Graphic is detail. That's what it's so. That's why you say graphic is pixels. What is a pixel? Is a point. So in our language, we really need to be knowing what we're talking about.
So
remember this, and there's always this duality. The finer a picture, right?
Right.
The better the understanding of the meaning of a picture as a whole.
Yes.
Again, multiplication by division, because multiplication is gravitational. It makes sense of a whole. Right?
Right.
It forces everything into a form. That's what is called gravitational. But just again, take the metaphor of a picture. What we call the best picture is the picture that has the details, the most diverse person, and arranged in a way that render the understanding of what is meant by the picture the clearest. Right?
Right.
So we always have these two playing. How many fractals can we discern? And what do they mean as a whole?
Well, that part
Synergy is higher than the whole details. Synergy encompasses all the details, all the local, the pixels. Hue beams is more than white guys. It's more than black guys.
Yes.
Is a characteristic, is a topology of hue beams, is what it is. It's not hue males, it's not hue females, it's not hue white, it's not hue blacks, it's not hue yellow.
Okay. When you're ready, it's about time to wrap it up.
I'm finished. My rant.
This is really
I hope I made sense.
You didn't make sense. You made sense of everything for me. I mean, I'm looking at this. I mean, I'm still, there are three major takeaways, right? You know, capital is not energy, right? Yeah, we got that. Wisdom is regenerative. All right,
Well, wait a minute. Capital is one form of energy.
It's not all of energy.
That's right.
Okay. Wisdom is regenerative. I get that. But the thing that's blowing my mind right now is understanding these calculations and seeing how they play out in nature. When I tell you, like, so and I went and I've been looking up some of the old calculations that my friends used, and I can substitute for our velocity or times mass equals momentum. I can almost substitute. They talk about momentum, but they also talk about how where is it? I wrote it down. Frequency, which is just velocity. Sentiment, which is just mass in a way.
Sentiment?
Yeah. Sentiment can be a mass. It's an amount of sentiment, like of amount of an emotion. Does that make sense? And then how this all relates to
sentiment, Steve, is like you have a basin of water, right? That's limpid. And then I throw in mercury or something that is called a colorant. That gives a sentiment, but doesn't change anything to the water. But the color of water is a mass.
And I'll tell you what really blew my mind is when we were talking about materiality, and just applying it to things like what is material? What is material is how frequency and how significant what the mass is of something is. And then you figure in, and that's how you can look at you measure the significance of something. I mean, you can measure, and that's essentially what materiality is. And then that works for, again, as I mentioned, if you're an auditor, if you're reading a financial report, all you care about is, there's going to be missteps, in your accounting and everything, but is it material to the overall health of the company itself? And so then, you think about it, are the transactions frequent enough? And then you can come back to Bucky's circles too, from there. Bucky circles of relevancy. I mean, is it relevant? And, is it too frequent? Not relevant. Or if I remember, I got too frequent, but not, what was it?
Hang on, I got it right here because I wanted to bring up these circles of irrelevancy, and I wasn't able to do it because we've gone so far, but there it is. This is twilight zone or tantalizingly relevant. This is almost relevant, twilight zone, almost relevant, tantalizing relevant. On the macro side, here is conceptuality, which is finite. And then here is twilight zone of almost relevant, tantalizingly relevant on the micro side.
Do you have the other ones that are right next to?
I do have the other ones. I put all three of them right together. Let me find them right here because since we're coming to an end.
But this is kind of an aha moment that Manu, for all of these things that we're talking about, all the statistical modeling, everything that I'm thinking about.
And Joe, this is 4-dimensional.
This is 4-dimensional.
Because 3-dimensional is from relevant looking out. 4th dimension is relevant looking in.
Right.
Exactly. And now this is perpendicular or orthogonal. So if I go from everything relevant is a 3D reality, if I make that assumption that everything relevant is a 3D reality, then I'm standing here 3D and I'm looking out. But I also, if I'm going to be Bucky, have to look in. I look from 3D, I look out to the macro, and from 3D, I look into the micro. And when I do that, when I look in both, I'm orthogonal with myself, and I'm now in 4 dimensions of reality. Because remember, micro is too small, too frequent, and macro is too large.
Too small, too frequent. That's wait a minute.
That's right. Too small, too frequent.
Right.
And macro is too large, too infrequent.
Let me think about that for a minute. Too large, too infrequent. Yes. All right. Yes. Okay. That makes sense.
Cool. And what I see I need to do now is I need to like combine all 3 of his circles into one circle. And then say, now this is a composite, but see here he starts talking about convex and concave, and this becomes very, very different than, this is very topological, convex and concave, where up here, we're just dealing in circles. Here he shows degrees by showing these angular, this is where he comes back to his jitterbug. This is showing the angular relationship, that this is, there are, you know, this is the tetrahedral, the tetrahedral approach, or the polyhedral approach to reality. And this comes back to circles, which, and spheres, which people understand very easily. But here he's inviting people to take a look at the angular topology rather than the spherical topology. I hope I said,
You know,
all
and I just had another breakthrough with momentum as well. I mean,
okay.
you know, and how energy is momentum divided by time, as Manu had just put into the chat.
Energy is
No,
momentum.
I think there is a mistake on that one. Let me just look at it. Energy is momentum multiplied by time rather than divided.
Oh, that's what I thought. Okay. Energy is multiplied by time. Wait a minute. So let me say this again. Momentum is energy is equal to momentum times time. Okay. That works back into the equation of velocity times mass equals momentum. It kind of is circular, right?
Pardon?
So if that's energy, right? So if velocity times mass is equal to momentum, right? The momentum times time is equal to energy.
Yes.
All I'm adding is time into that equation. And then I can get to energy.
Yes, and that's where you have you can demonstrate also the equivalence of mass and energy that way. Because when you say energy is momentum by time, remember that in momentum, only the mass remains. So when you multiply by time, time goes.
And you know, this could be used, I know, very narrowly in my world. That's unfortunately how I think in economics. I just have to think out how all these things work together. This is a very, very, this is an epiphany for me. This is a true epiphany this evening.
I'm loving it, Joe, and I've been relaxing because you have a context that's very unique as a consultant for the Navy and in your job environment. So I've just really been really excited about how you've been willing to play with these concepts and integrate. So please continue, right?
Yeah, no, and I will, and I'll forward you. You know, again, my friends wrote this presentation. What year was that? Hell, 12 years ago. They sold the company for 4 years ago for $800 million, just one of them. And but their algorithms, I could break down everything into what we're talking about here. I can even send you their presentation. where they talk about, now they talk about time, they talk about momentum, and then as I mentioned, they talk about sentiment.
I'm curious about the sentiment thing. I'd like to have that discussion more with you later, but keep rolling. Keep rolling.
They also talk about a published time versus an event time, which is a published time is when you actually know about it, but the event, when the actual event actually happened. That's how they're temporal. That's how they figure in things temporally. Events, how they, entities plus events are canonical instances.
Canonical instances. Yeah. In
Yeah,
other words, they're documented and assumed to be true.
that's right. And that's the structure.
Yeah.
But all of these things that we're talking about here fit exactly into the equations that we're talking about.
Cool.
There's some additional definitions that need to be hashed out, but they fit into everything we're talking about. And then if you think about it in terms of, again, I come back to that audit term, it applies to everything. You could start to see the connections in everything. I'll send this to you. It's really ugly, this presentation. But
You say really ugly. What do you mean?
I was done 12 years ago, and I took it and I scanned it, and it's a long story. These guys actually became my friend, really good friends. But it's just scroll down to the, I'll send this to you, but just scroll down to the end. And you'll start to see what I'm talking about. I mean, this is something where I'm starting to see all the things that Bucky talks about in a different way. I'm starting to see how they apply to all parts of nature. So it's a really good call.
Cool.
I just have to start to really sit here and think about these things and make sure I get my terms right. That's the other part.
Well, and that's why I'm happy to have you just continue to talk, Joe.
Well, it's going to take time. I'm going to have to almost map. I need almost a whiteboard. I used to have a whiteboard in my room.
Yeah. Well, if you want to, I mean, I'm happy to. Nobody else is on the call. Manu, it's early in the morning for him, getting later and later. And if you want to talk for a little bit more, because you're mapping it at least in thinkable sets with the words you're stating.
Well, that's another thing I wanted to get to is thinkable sets.
Well, you're doing that right now by connecting all of these words. You're creating thinkable sets. This is something I'm writing in my paper. Words have connotative meaning. There is a thinkable set behind each word. When I say word, in my head, I have 4 or 5 dots I'm connecting that make a word based on my personal experience. So, and that's what these are, memes. A word is a symbol representing a meme, and the meme is the thinkable set.
Mm-hmm.
When I conceptualize something, I put my connotative meaning on it, I have created a thinkable set, and 99% of the time for most human beings, that thinkable set is unconscious and not necessarily connected. It's been connected by, what did you use? Emotion, not emotion. What was the word you used?
Momentum.
No, you're talking about something else.
Sentiment.
Sentiment. Sentiment, I didn't want to challenge you on that, but that's really emotion, and that's really passion. Sentiment is the way that concept or word relates in my central nervous system. Do I feel good about it? Is it powerful? Is there a better word? This is sentiment. It's critical.
Well, sentiment, and then on a mass scale. Think about it coupled with mass.
Oh, sure.
So then what do you have? That's something very powerful right there, because you have what majorities of people are thinking
Well, and that's
and feeling.
debatable. That's
Well,
debatable.
it well, is it debatable?
Well, and in our day, when we can take a bunch of text messages and a bunch of web pages, and we can do a van chart on that, or some other kind of chart that measures the number of times and the sources from which that thing comes, we can actually create a trending chart. I don't have the words for this. You know what I'm talking about, right?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Is there a word for that?
It's not a trending chart.
But you can chart how often a word is used in literature over time, and you can actually see these bubbles moving over that fourth dimension of time, where time is not the fourth dimension, but duration is one good way to look at time. Do you know what it's called? Anyway.
No, I'm trying to think of it right now. And duration is one way to think about time. Yeah, it is.
Yeah. And it's one way to think of a fourth dimension. Time is not the fourth dimension. However, duration is a way to look at time, to understand it, and to think of it as a fourth dimension. The actual fourth dimension has nothing to do with time, because the fourth dimension is all time, everywhere. But for my 3D brain to conceptualize it, I like to think of it as duration. It started here, it ended there. I don't know if Manu likes what I just said, but that's something. Have you finished your, because I'm kind of, I think we're in the process of, okay, Joe, what is your takeaway? And you were kind of going for it.
So I'm going for it. I'm still putting it all together. I'm like kind of just, I'm taking one thing at a time, and I'm connecting these things, and I'm actually sending you something that right now that'll help you see what I'm connecting. Good. And how I'm connecting things, like essentially events. And even what we're thinking about time, again, the temporal structure, how when we know about an event and the actual time that an event happens, and how those two things are separate.
Well, that's absolutely true.
And and you have to figure that out.
Well, it can be helpful to figure it out. A human being doesn't have to.
No, you don't have to do anything.
Yeah, we can live our whole lives and not ever connect those dots. But when I do that, Joe, I'm getting closer to a thinkable set.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And then you're reducing lag in there too. No, you're not.
Well, I'm accounting for lag.
Yes, you're accounting for lag. That's the way of saying it.
Yeah.
And that's where lag comes in.
Okay. Are you anything more you want to do here? Because kind of like,
wait a minute, discard momentum and energy above. Momentum times velocity is energy. That's a big difference.
Yes. I was wrong there. You know, that momentum times velocity is energy. Momentum.
That makes more sense to me. That makes more sense to me.
Good.
That actually, so
and then you can demonstrate the equivalence of energy and mass that way.
Yeah, that's now we're talking, when we go momentum times velocity equals energy, we're talking about vectors.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because a vector is a topological way to look at energy moving in an environment.
Yes,
in a 3D brain, I see a truck or a car, and it's moving, and it has energy, and it has kinetic energy, and it has all these energies, and I see it in 3D. But when we look at it in 4D, bam, we're looking at vectors.
Yes, and you see, Steve,
vectors.
Momentum is a vector. velocity is a vector.
Yeah.
The product of the two is a scalar.
Yeah. And
A
maybe we
scala-
could say,
You're saying
Yes.
SCALA, right? That makes
Yes.
sense to me.
type it
Yeah.
in. Type it in.
Energy is a scalar like mass.
Yes,
Type it in, Manu, so we can see how to spell this word. And I would say
noticed it's
that if we take that formula and we go times mass, then we have an object, a 3D object.
Yes.
Take all that formula times mass, we now have 3D object.
Did I do that correctly, Manu?
Scala?
Just but the product of the two is a scalar.
Oh, I see. So we could say energy is a scala, and a scala is momentum times velocity.
Yes.
All right,
And
good.
momentum and velocity are vector. So you bring the two. It's like you bring in the two. Is a duality of duality brought the two to make a quantum, a tetrahedron.
Cool. And I just plugged in there.
You see, the sign of a tetrahedron stable is zero. The charge is zero. The charge is neither negative nor positive, is zero. But you have to bring, to have the zero, you have to bring
A scalar.
one dual into another dual, like this, in order to build a scalar, a quantum. A scalar is a quantum.
And I don't have a tetrahedron until I have both of those.
Yes.
And I like
I was completely
definition.
wrong on that, on the scalar. I'm sorry.
Okay, good. And I really like my definition, guys. So please challenge it. If I take momentum times velocity times mass, I now have a 3D object.
Take momentum times.
No, the mass is already there, Steve.
I can have momentum and velocity without mass.
No, you cannot have momentum without mass.
The energy is, the universe is
You
filled
can
with
have
energy.
you can have momentum with a velocity without mass, but you can't have it in a 3D object.
That's right.
So you cannot have momentum without mass by definition.
Oh, I don't believe that's true. I mean, you think by definition,
Yeah, momentum is directed mass.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's fair.
Well,
remember we say you need velocity. Momentum, the definition is mass times velocity. You remember that?
Momentum
is mass times velocity. Well, then how can you go momentum is mass times velocity and then say momentum times velocity is energy?
Yes. You have mass there twice.
You're telling me there's no energy without mass?
No, I'm saying that when energy is flowing in this direction and energy is flowing in that direction, the intersection of the two is a mass, is a tetrahedron that you have.
Yeah,
remember
but the universe is energy flowing in every direction all at once without
mass. Yes. Energy is flowing like this. You're Taurus, Steve. Yeah, energy is flowing like that, and energy is flowing like that.
Yeah, I know.
It makes the tetrahedron.
Yeah, this is the
that is where you are in this. You see that all those spheres. Yeah, where you are there, the octahedron, you are there.
This is the octahedron. I am an octahedron, and by the way, I have a really good graphic on that I could show you. But this is Bucky's precession, 6 basic movements of the universe. Soviet P is the mnemonic memory peg. And here it is, S for spin or counter spin, O for orbit and counter orbit.
Can you send that back to, I know you sent that to me 100 times, but do you mind sending it to me?
Yeah, I'm glad to do it. In fact, I revamped it tonight based on while you guys were talking, I was busy. V is anything capital is a word, anything in lowercase is conceptual, but doesn't manifest. So V is a vector. All of this stuff is vectors. All energy is manifest as vector. All energy is manifest as vectors or a vector or multiple vectors. Then there's in and out. Then there's expansion and contraction, or inspansion is my favorite word. Then there's torque and counter torque. And then there's precession, which is everything in motion all at once. Think of the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once. Have you guys seen that movie?
Yeah.
It is very cool. Here it is right here.
Mrs. Wang. Mrs. Wang, are you with us? I am paying attention. Now, you may only see a pile of receipts, but I see a story. I can see where this story is going. It does not look good.
There's the fractal of time.
What's happening?
Evelyn, I'm not your husband. I'm another version of him from another universe. I'm here because we need your help.
Very busy today. No time to help you.
Across the multiverse, I've seen thousands of Evelyns.
I haven't seen that.
All their memories, their emotions, even their skills. There's a great evil spreading throughout the many verses. And you may be our only chance of stopping it.
Don't make me fight you. I am really good.
I don't believe you.
Wow, that was really good.
He's waiting in the wings.
The universe
He speaks of senseless things.
is so much bigger
Written in you and
than you realize.
Of all the places I could be, I just wanted to share with you.
Remember our mission. Consider the fate of every single world of our infinite multiverse.
There is no way I am the Evelyn you are looking for.
Every rejection, every disappointment has led you here. To this moment. Don't let anything distract you from it.
So in this movie, she suddenly becomes four-dimensional. In fact, she becomes multidimensional because she can bring skills from any of her universes of experience into this moment.
When
And
did this movie come out?
Last year.
I haven't watched it yet.
I didn't see it.
I'm gonna buy it.
I thought I
Okay.
saw it.
It's a great movie. I will send you the link to this, to the preview right here. I'll put it in the chat so that you
Is
have
it on Netflix?
I don't know that it is on Netflix. Let me check on it.
Okay.
Okay, so let me see here. I
It
just,
might be on Prime.
what's that?
It might be on Prime.
It is on Prime for rent at least, and it may be somewhere else. Joe, are you complete with your wrap up with your
Yeah, I'm
take?
complete. I sent you guys a couple things, more than a couple. I sent you just look at the last two emails I sent you. Forget the other
Okay.
stuff.
All righty, good. So Joe, do you want to pass it on to somebody else?
Oh yeah, sure. Manu.
Uh,
How do you feel? And what'd you take away from today? And I
Yeah.
just want to say thank you, Manu. Hopefully tomorrow. This is the problem when you're so busy. Hopefully tomorrow when I can play around with this and actually while it's fresh in my head and really start to understand things. Anyway, how do you feel? What do you want to take? Would you take away?
I really feel good. And it said there is a say that is, if you want to succeed, fail faster.
Yeah, it's true.
Okay. So here, during this call, I say a lot of things, a lot of rubbish too. So, but
Oh, I wouldn't
was-
say that.
it was experimenting in the way and remembering things. But my biggest takeaway from this is really the importance of the macro first before the micro.
Yeah.
So beside the generalized duality, and Joe, you came, wisdom is a set of equivalences. Because in order to leverage, you need to know what the equivalence of what.
Right.
Because you can't carry every matter to every place where you want to influence. So you need to know what to trade. So what is the equivalence of this and that? And the knowledge of those equivalencies make the set of it is your toolbox or your box of wisdom. That's how you become wise.
Right.
And you become wise by trying to be at minimum
Of 2.
eight dimensional.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, 5. You imagine there is a trihedron that gives you 4 dimensions and it's dual. Let's just put it like that. So you need to go 5 dimensions. You hear what I'm saying?
Yes, I do. Yes, for wisdom.
Yes, you need to view the world in 4 dimensions. That's what we say. But you need to imagine that is only one face. So there's another face. That is
No, I
equivalent.
agree.
So you can take it 8 dimension, but it's enough operatively to say 5 dimensions. And that is my biggest take of this. So once you understand that, and our challenge is to find a way to make lay people start grasping the importance of that duality and the importance of understanding things through it, and taking I'll call the lag of backstep to think forward.
Heard from our big.
And then put together things in a way that makes sense and are also mindful of that we want to be regenerative. And we can only build that by trial and error. There's no all case proof artifact yet that we can, but we aim for that. And we think that it can be done in a way that is understandable by everybody. That's my biggest takeaway from this. And also, I'm very grateful of a free flow, that people didn't feel like they had to restrain themselves to say things, even if they are forced. That's the way the world is. It's a soup of things perpetually testing each other and going in all directions, as my friend Steve will always say. So that's what I take away here. Steve, how do you feel? What do you take away?
Well, I'm real excited. I'm glad we waited till quarter after, and I'm glad we came to a consensus about just continuing our free flowing conversation. I think that one of the things that frustrated me in the old days, and if I'm going to say bluntly with Kelly, was that he had this agenda and he would drag us through a section and we couldn't just stop and talk about it. And so I'm really grateful for being able to just free flow and say what was meaningful, even if it was wrong. I also want to say, with all respect to my brother Manu, that it took me a year to understand how Manu's brain is so topological.
Yeah.
And I think it might be genetic code. I think it might come from his ancestors. And this Western idea of being so topographical and being so linear is just really hard. It just frustrated me to talk to Manu because he consistently goes back to this topological conversation. I'm saying, well, Manu, I'm trying to make a point here. And what I've learned is the point is, on one hand, the point's relevant to me because I'm making progress. On the other hand, the point is completely irrelevant. Because if I settle on one concept, one point, one concept, because Bucky keeps talking about non-conceptual, when we talk about thinkable sets, he talks about what's conceptual and what's non-conceptual. Right. And the problem is that a human being keeps trying to conceptualize the universe, which is by its basic nature not conceptual. And yet my brain conceptualizes. And I live in a world of concepts. But they're totally arbitrary. My brain made it up. And my reality is completely different than your reality. And I'm totally convinced that my reality is totally different than Manu's reality by freaking continents and ancestors apart. And I love that. I mean, where could I go where I get to be with my brother from another mother, from another continent, for crying out loud, without, you know, at least 6 generations that I can count on my genealogy chart, but probably 100 generations that put us back to the same place.
Mm.
We came out of the same place, but we've gone through hundreds of generations of conceptualization that
Right.
where my brain has, where I think I'm different than Manu. I think I'm separate from Manu. I think I'm separate from you, Joe. And that's just conceptually screwed up, but it's how I live my life.
So we all
And-
live our lives.
Yeah. And so what I want to do is live in both worlds. I want to live being Steve in Utah, but I want to live being the brother to Joe and the brother to Manu.
Mhm.
And not be so committed to my concepts and let my concepts separate me from you. I had a couple of really good insights today. One was I reworked my mnemonic pegs on precession. And I looked through all my documents and I hadn't really written them out like it evolved in my head. At least I couldn't find that document. So I'm really thrilled that I got to share the star tetrahedron, this picture here, which shows the octahedron over here. Oh,
There.
I want to show you this octahedron. Let me please take the liberty, because this is so, I had this vision a year ago or so, 2 years ago. Octahedron. Oh shoot, hang on, octahedron. And okay, here we go. Whoops, those are all PNGs. I'm looking for, here's the PNG, but I want to show you I actually have a animation of it. I spent a couple $1,000s on this. Here it is.
Jesus.
Here we go. So this is me, my meditation man, and here's the octahedron that I would not be here without this octahedron. The octahedron is the double tetrahedron. This is the implied octahedron inside the double tetrahedron, which is me. And it's not just spinning clockwise or counterclockwise. That octahedron is in precession. It's spinning in and out and up and out and between and everything. And that's that is this octahedron right here in 3D, in animation.
Yes.
I also am very excited about that. I got to talk about my 4D understanding of these circles of irrelevancy. And I am going to, before I go to sleep tonight, I'm going to make sure I composite all these into one chart.
Yes.
So that I can show one chart that says lucidly relevant and says finite and says, and brings all the terms together. Tantalizingly almost relevant and almost relevant. And then down here, it is twilight zone of almost relevant. I'm going to put all those together, all those terms together in one thing. What I'm not going to be able to explain very well is the polyhedral approach, the jitterbug approach to reality that's represented by these octahedral lines, and represented by these lines showing convex and concave. Bucky really
That's not clear.
Yeah, well, it's understanding convex and concave perception of conceptually definite and how it's both concave and convex simultaneously is not an easy concept. And yet that is what precession is. My universe what?
That is actually another view of energy always flow.
Exactly right.
Yes.
And here was the epiphany I got tonight, because in my years of hypnotherapy, I've been teaching a principle called comfort zones.
Yeah.
And let me share with you what this is. So we talk about people living their life in their comfort zone, and they don't go outside their comfort zone because it's a danger zone. If I go out here, I'm going to die. If I stay in here, I'm comfortable. I must eat. I must be safe. I must reproduce. I must survive. Sympathetic nervous system response, but I don't grow here. And the danger zone, this is living my nightmares. It's fear, flight, fight, fidget, freeze, faint, feign, forget, fake it, fib, falsify, and fend, and defend, right? But if I don't get out of my comfort zone, I freaking don't grow. So I have to find a space between my comfort zone and my danger zone, and that is in my safety zone. So I create a safety zone. How? I live my ground rules. This is how I grow. I set up a goal with a purpose and a deadline, and I step outside my comfort zone for that limited period, and then step back in and reevaluate. And I realize these are this right here is the circles of irrelevancy. This is relevant. This is tantalizingly irrelevant. And this is the fringe where I have to test my reality. And if I go too far, I just obliterate myself. I go into oblivion. But now this is a 3D representation, and these circles over here are the 4D representation. So imagine this is my comfort zone. 3. Right. Circle 3 is my comfort zone. Circle 2 is my safety zone, and out here is my danger zone. It's non-simultaneous. It's non-synchronous. It's freaking too frequent, infrequent. I can't even exist here. It's too large for me. And inside now, this is when I go 4D. So now I turn my table around, and now I go from here inside. And so now what I need to do is take that and put a bubble inside there, and I'm going to do it here just for my reminder. And I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to take this bubble, right, and now I'm going to expand it right here, and this is where I'm going to go into my into my micro, right? This is where I go to micro. You see, I need to go to white.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah. And so now I want to go into my fourth dimension. This is all 3D thinking. Everything here is judgment by my past experience. And when I move into that little circle there, I go into micro. I go into the source of everything. Everything exists inside and everything exists outside. So
Steve, I don't want to interrupt you, but I just want to propose something maybe that enriches it.
Let's hear it.
That is, from what you explained, to grow is to travel outside of my current self.
Yeah, absolutely correct.
Okay, so you see that whether you go to the micro or outside, the tantalizing out, you are growing.
Oh yeah, and I'm also growing when I go tantalizingly in.
Yes, so it is a process.
Absolutely.
It is an oscillating process.
You have to go in before you go out.
It's in and out. It's in.
No, you have to go in before you go out.
Well, and most people go out before they go in.
That's the problem.
But the growth is to grow is to travel outside of current self.
Exactly, which is
right, but not before you
inside.
But not before you know the self.
Yes.
I'll never
know where you are.
I'll never know where.
No, there is a way. This is the Bhagavad Gita, essentially, is that you go inwards in order to go outwards.
Exactly
but
right.
Know where you are. Know where you are.
Yeah, a bit awareness.
In the largest interpretation possible. That is, know where you are in 4 dimensions.
And my DNA is the code for that knowing where I am. I need to be consistent with my DNA, which is the lattice for my 4D self. My DNA is the molecular code. It's the 3D code for my 4D self.
Yeah. To start, know where you are.
I must start from where I am. And I always heard about that, in order to give somebody a goal, I can't just say, they say, well, how do I get to Boston? Well, the first thing I have to know is, where are you in right now? Yeah. And most people never correlate where they are right now. They just set up a goal and go off half sprung into this thing, and they never stop to look at where they are. And so this then leads to successive reapproximation, right? Yes. And successive reapproximation is where I know where I am right now, and then I blast off, and I look back and I look forward, and I look back and I look forward, and I come up to myself. And here
But do you know that at the beginning of what you've been saying here, Steve, you first establish the original pole.
Yes.
You always establish the original pole in that you go higher.
Yes.
To say Boston.
Yeah.
When you stay in your forest, you don't know what Boston is.
Right.
You imagine higher to say Boston. Now you are in Utah, right?
Yeah.
So you know the Utah. So you know that Boston exists and
Is
you are
one
in
pole,
Utah.
and Utah is another pole.
Yes. And
Now I
that's from
get
where? That is the initial duality. That is the initial unity.
Yeah. And I must realize that I think Boston is there, but Boston is actually in precession.
Yes. So you and this is what you're doing. This is the cap here is Boston, and then here Utah here, and then you're doing this.
Yeah, exactly right. It's
Yeah, because every time that you do this, and this is doing that, you're doing this. This is doing
Boston,
that, and you have to keep your north. You have to see this blue stuff. It's doing this and it's doing that. You know, so you are approximating in your angle of hearing.
Yes. Absolutely.
You are using your trim tab to set your angle of hearing towards that.
Right.
It does this, you do that.
Yeah.
Right? It does this, you do that. But you are every time kind of, you're spending energy here, coming closer and closer. That's how you land on the moon. Because otherwise you never land. Remember what we discussed about at the beginning. How fast does it take for a drop of water that double to fill a stadium? How far, you can also say, how far does it take? How small does it take your angle of hearing?
The angle
at the start of the process, your angle of hearing. Your angle of hearing.
Spell it?
I don't know.
Veering, let me pronounce it.
Veering?
Veering, of turning, veering.
Oh, veering off course, the angle,
Yes,
the angular precession.
That's it. Yeah.
Yes.
The angular.
Yes. How small does it take you at the beginning of the process?
Right.
For you to find, how long will it take for you to find yourself at opposite poles of where you want to go?
Exactly.
In other words, how long does it, what angle, what time will it take you if you don't focus it, if you don't adjust all the time?
And this is what Bucky called angular topology.
Yes.
Whenever he said topology, he said angular topology because everything.
But I'm trying, Steve, I'm trying to link what we discussed before. I'm saying, if you're not aware and pay attention into your life, how long will it take? You say, how long will it take for you to be completely opposite to where you wanted to be?
Yeah. Now listen, imagine that I'm on one of these planets here. I'm on Earth, which is somewhere in here, right? The blue dot, somewhere in here. And I'm trying to get to Boston.
Yeah.
But this is actually what's happening, because while I think I'm going in a straight line to Boston, I'm spinning in angular momentum through the universe. And the sun, by the way, is spinning around the galaxy, and the galaxy is spinning around the center of the universe. There is angular topology everywhere around me.
Yeah.
Can you say vortex?
Wow. If you don't put yourself spherical, you cannot imagine the concept. You can't even imagine that you can live through a vortex.
Yeah.
You know, I had a cousin who was really a specialist. We go to the countryside and there will be, the water vortex on the river. A river that is flowing, and there is all of a sudden there is a vortex.
That's right.
The vortex exists. There are points where there are permanent vortex.
Yeah, a whirlpool. Yeah.
Yes. And then this guy used to kind of dive in there and come out somewhere else. I will never do it.
Yeah.
I will stay on the side of the river. And for him, it was play because he's practiced it so much. So it was like a fish. He comes in there and they use, I remember quite well, him and his friend, they will come in there, they jump into the whirlpool, they come out and they follow a line somewhere and they come out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Look at this.
In fact, a good navigator knows how to use those vortexes.
Yes.
Knows how to use the current, go with the current, go against the current, and what forces like wind can overcome the vortex. And if you try to fight that vortex, you could wreck your boat. So you kind of
Yeah.
surrender and go with what's going on until you move out to the outer edges, and the vortex momentum kind of subsides, and then other forces, other vectors then I can use other vectors to navigate.
So DNA is a vortex. Our DNA.
Okay.
Because it keeps the shape, it keeps the flow, you know, adapting all the time to the environment. Because our chemicals are always changing, huh? Right?
I love what we're sharing here. And you put in veering, Manu, and it came only to me. It didn't come to everybody. And as a result,
I know what he meant.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry.
Now this is from
I had to
Manu.
set, yeah.
And
I had
mine
to set my
mine
stuff
trips
off.
off. Mine trips off every once in a while too. It just did so from me. There we go. So that's the vortex thing. Well, so that's my share. So, you know, I'm going to redo my circle. I've redone my comfort zone while I was talking to you guys, because I need to show my comfort zone as being out and in. The circles of irrelevancy, that tantalizing, almost relevant, is outside, is too slow and too big for me to understand from my
Yeah.
basic paradigm, and the inside is too small or too frequent for me to understand. And as I expand my horizons, I expand my awareness, then my relevant gets bigger and bigger, and my almost irrelevant, my tantalizing, moves out and in simultaneously. Woo! And you know what? I wish we had somebody that cared we could send this video to.
Susan will care.
I don't think anybody takes the time to watch these videos.
She'll care
I don't know,
if
man.
we tell her.
I
if we tell her.
I try to rewatch videos.
I'm behind. I'll just say
yeah.
that.
I tried. And for a long time, I was trying to make a Word file. I have a huge Word file where I have the chats, the participant, and I put the hyperlink.
I kept today's chat.
Of the hyperlink of the hyperlink of a recording.
Yeah.
On a file, so that I can follow it, and when I click on the hyperlink, it will take me to the recording.
Cool. Yeah. I do.
Yeah, I try to do that. I'm up to date to probably 3 months ago. I will take some time again.
Well, you need to know, I think, that this may be helpful, because I do this too every week. And here's the link to the call. Here's a summary of what we discussed.
Yeah.
And like this is supposed to be today's let me see. This is 38. This is 29. Yeah. I will set up the next conversation for the next week and give a description. So I'm gonna have to look at that and see what that's about. But anyway, I do that here. This is the weekend calls. And then I have another sheet here for the weekday calls, Wednesday calls. And here is what we did and who was there. And I just kind of keep track of that. So if you want to keep a list, you can. I've listened to a few of these, but they're so long that I've never got. I wish I could listen to each one again. I think I'm gonna make a point to at least listen to the last half of this, because this was an amazing conversation. Joe, you are putting out some amazing stuff today. Manu, always.
I made some amazing. I'm just trying to keep them in my head right now, just so I can get
Yeah.
those straight, and I can start making more connections with this.
Yeah. And here's another gripe I have, because Bucky says that every human being is a cosmic billionaire. And you know, to say that my energy is simply capital.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking that's exactly what he said.
Yeah. You know,
Well, he's not talking, maybe he's not talking about money.
he's not talking about money. He's talking about the whole universe is ours.
Right.
We can make it what we want. If we want to make it based on capital, then we'll have a capital-based universe. If we want to make it based on compassion and love, then we'll have a compassion and love-based universe. You know, if we want to have a capitalist universe, we'll have Thomas Edison and JP Morgan. If we wanted to have a compassionate universe, we'd have Nikola Tesla without a bunch of monopolies trying to control the capital. So
one day at a time.
Yeah, one day at a time.
We just have to do what's in front of us.
Yeah. So I love you guys. That's my share.
Love you
So
guys.
today was free flow.
It was free.
It was free flow.
Yeah.
I was definitely free flow. Take a look at the last presentation I sent you, and take a look at the comprehensivity file. That's just something on the side to read.
Okay, cool. Who's that lady behind your shoulder, Joe? Is
just
that Van
made-
Gogh? Is that Van Gogh?
No,
right
no, it's
there?
veneer. That's
Oh, that's-
lady girl with a pearl. It's my favorite painting. I saw her in New York.
Ah,
When she came to the Frick Museum.
yeah. So not Van Gogh, but veneer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, very cool. Each of you are my own veneer. I love you.
Well, and it's you know, it's yeah, it's sometimes it just takes a while for things to come together.
Yep. Thank you, all.
Okay.
All right.
Thank Joe. I said I've received your 2 emails.
Oh yeah, I sent like oh, wait a minute. You should, yeah, the last 2 were the important ones.
Have a good
I want
Sunday.
to check out. Yeah.
Yeah, oh, I got a long Sunday ahead of me. I really, it's my
Wow.
mom's birthday.
Oh,
Wow.
congratulations.
You have,
to your
to,
mom.
you, have,
Blessings
you have
to
to
your-
pamper. You have to pamper her. And
I did.
spoil-
I was taking care of her earlier tonight, so.
So you remember I told you I learned about, my wife told me about the shorter parent. She hadn't read Bucky, but she said she said me the other day, I'm the shorter parent.
You're the
So,
what? Shorter?
The shorter parent.
Sure.
Yeah,
Type it into the thing, because I'm not
More
getting.
short. Sure.
shorter parent.
Certain. More certain. I
Yeah.
would guess.
She said the mother is a shorter parent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. More certain. Yeah. That's how I saw it.
Okay,
Happy-
guys.
All right. Good night.
Good night.
Yes.
Good day. Good day to Manu. Good night to you. And it's
Yeah. Good day to you, Mano.
yeah, it's 2:00 in the morning for our friend Joe, Manu.
Yeah, it is.
It's 2
Oh,
a.m.
Joe,
for
sorry.
Joe.
That's
Yeah.
all right. Good night.
Good night.
Okay. Yes. Bye.
Bye-bye.